please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Putnam,
Here.
Commissioner Romero,
Present.
Commissioner Say,
Here.
Commissioner Glass, Chairman Glass, Vice Chairman Smith, Commissioner Hewitt,
Here?
Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
and alternate Commissioner Rue.
I forgot the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's start with that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first part of the Planning Commission meeting, we have a 3-minute opportunity for anybody to speak on any issue that is not on the agenda. So if anybody's in the audience that wants to bring something up, they can bring it up now, and then we'll hear it. Anybody out there? Seeing none? Oh, nobody wants, okay, good. Hello out there. Okay, oral communications, consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I'll have to recuse myself. I was absent and I didn't watch the meeting.
Me too, actually. So I was on a different island, warmer. So only 3 of us get to vote. Call for a vote.
Commissioner Putnam,
Yes.
Commissioner Romero,
Yes.
Commissioner Say,
Abstain.
Chairman Glass, Commissioner Hewitt,
Abstain?
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Rue. Abstain. Okay.
Okay, on to the public hearings. The first item, transient rental. Staff report, please.
Okay, item number 2 is requesting for a transient rental license and a coastal development permit to allow the renting or leasing of a room with or without table boards in a dwelling unit for periods of fewer than 30 consecutive days at number 28 Avalon Terrace, otherwise known as 28 Sol Vista. The owner applicant and property manager information is, the owner and applicant is Jose Luis Moreno. He is in the audience. The property is located within the medium-density residential zone. The property contains 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and is developed with residential use consistent with the general plan and is allowed under the 2023 growth policy. The property manager for the unit is the property owner, Jose Luis Moreno, and his contact information is located in the staff report. The subject property and all surrounding properties are developed with single and multi-residential units. The requested transient rental license does not involve any physical changes to the existing residence that would adversely affect or be materially detrimental to adjacent uses, buildings, and structures. The saturation map attached in the staff report indicates that oversaturation will not occur. The proposed project is categorically exempt under Section 15305 of the State CEQA guidelines and minor alterations in land use limitations, i.e. CUP for transient rental, which do not result in changes in land use or density. The project requires a coastal development permit under Section 9-8.102 B2V of the Avalon Municipal Code. The project is not within the 300-foot appealable zone. City staff have not received any comments in favor or opposition of the transient rental license. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt under Section 15305 of the state CEQA guidelines, minor alterations and land use limitations. Adopt the findings necessary as outlined in the staff report to support approval of the coastal development permit, including that the project is not within the 300-foot appealable zone. And find the application is allowed under the 2023 annual growth policy. That's my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we open the public hearing? Seeing none. Open the hearing. Anybody wish to speak for or against? Okay, seeing none. Close the hearing. Any discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this application pursuant to the standard list of conditions set by the city of Avalon in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote.
Okay, Commissioner Putnam,
Yes.
Commissioner Romero,
Yes.
Commissioner Say,
Yes.
Commissioner Heward,
Yes?
Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes.
Okay, Isaac, so we have 5 yeses and 3 abstain, or absent.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
Motion carried. Well, item number 2, please.
3.
Item number 3.
Item number 3.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I know, I always struggle with our numbering too. So item number 3 before you is consideration of site plan for the development of a beer garden within the commercial C zone located on Front Street at 301 Crescent Avenue. As you recall or may recall, this project has previously received a conditional use permit and the coastal development permit from the Planning Commission. Briefly, just want to, for the record, address that on October 19th, Planning Commission had previous review on this proposal where the Planning Commission took the following action, that being adopting the findings to support the approval of the conditional use permit, authorizing the operation of a restaurant in the commercial zone, adopted findings to support approval of a coastal development permit, found the project consistent with the 2022 growth policy, and found the project categorically exempt from environmental review in accordance with Section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act, new construction or conversion of small structures. Which brings us to tonight. Since that time, the Planning Commission has deferred approval of the more fully developed site plan. The applicant and the city have had 2, 3, maybe more, 4 meetings reviewing site plans, proposals. They've accepted proposed changes from the city. We've had what I would categorize as a very good working relationship as far as accepting our considerations, which leads us to the current plan presented tonight before Planning Commission. The site that I think you're all familiar with is in a irregularly shaped lot, approximately 6,650 square feet, located on the main visitor-serving pedestrian corridor running along the bay, surrounded by a mix of other commercial uses, including retail, food, beverage, lodging, financial, postal, and entertainment. The lot is currently vacant, but it's previously operated as a vehicle rental business in more recent years, and with a small structure located on Crescent, and then the remaining portions of the parcel have been used for outside trash storage, and it's mostly flat and vacant. So briefly, the project description, and I know we'll have a presentation tonight from the applicant, so I'll hit these quickly. It's a seasonal proposal for the use, roughly April through October. Occupancy, as depicted, seating for approximately 145, maximum to be determined. Serving food or beer and wine, no on-site kitchen, light entertainment, portable restrooms, fire pit, shipping containers will provide additional storage, and we will be asking for those to be screened in a manner approved by the Planning Department. Traffic will be anticipated to be mostly pedestrian. The current corridors, current traffic patterns will serve it. The trash containers will be distributed throughout the site plan. However, the dumpster location, the applicant has agreed to move it to the alleyway with access from the alleyway, which will better serve both, it's something we've been looking to do with that site anyway, so it'll better serve both this particular site and the city to be able to remove that trash through the alley. And the dumpsters will be screened as depicted. So the license, ABC license is a type 42, and the applicant intends to work towards a type 41 in the future. Just to indicate quickly regarding the site plan, site plan is required as the project does not qualify as a minor renovation per municipal code. Requires a site plan to be approved based upon 3 factors and principles, those being as follows. Every use, development of land, and application of development standards shall take place in compliance with all applicable provisions of this title. We find that to be in compliance as set forth. Every use, development of land, application, development standards shall be considered on the basis of suitability of the site for the particular use or development intended, and total development, including the application, prescribed development standards, shall be so arranged to avoid traffic congestion, ensure protection of public health, safety, and general welfare. We also find that, based upon the site plan, to be in compliance. And finally, item C, every use, development of land, application of development standards shall be considered on the basis of suitability and functional development design, but is not intended that such be approved or such approval be interpreted to require a particular style or type of architecture. Again, the applicant has worked with us to make sure that we find that that's in compliance with the adjacent properties. And I'd also point out that the beer garden as proposed does not involve any permanent alterations or construction of any permanent fixtures on that site. Finally, I'm not going to cover what's already been granted in the October 19th hearing, but the recommendations presented by staff is that staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt attached resolution approving the site plan with the attached conditions as set forth in attached Exhibit A, in addition to any other conditions that might come up tonight. But in particular, I just want to point out the conditions pointed out by staff, which is among the standard conditions, we'd also like the City of Avalon Fire Department to review and authorize the fire suppression system, particularly the shut-off valves that will be feeding the fire pits. Applicants aware of this, and while they've had meetings with the fire chief and everybody's in agreement, they want to see those actually put into effect. Also, signage, which does not appear on the site plan, must be in compliance with the Avalon Municipal Code and approved by the Planning Department. And we would ask that a condition be that the on-site storage container be painted or screened or addressed in such a manner, clad in such a manner that makes it consistent with the overall character and doesn't look like just a storage container sitting in a parking lot. So in addition to the other conditions as set forth in the resolution, which are our standard conditions to the Planning Commission, we would ask those, and we'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we open the public hearing?
I just have one question. Is it still 21 and older?
It will be 21 and older. That is the anticipation. I'm sure that will be addressed by Mr. Stevens.
Okay, open the hearing. Hearing's open for this project site plan. Anybody for or against would like to speak? Just name and address and
Good evening. Jeff Stevens, currently reside in Newport Beach, California, Director of Planning for the Island Company, representing the applicant. I'd like to just go quickly through a short slide presentation. There's this project, is, I think we all know, has kind of gone through a process where our first application started out very conceptual on the site plan, and it's finally gotten to the point where it is. Okay, thank you. So with that, with your permission, I'd like to go ahead. Also, I'd like to thank staff for their help and the commission's input. It's been a good progression to what you'll see started with a very conceptual site plan and now is actually a very detailed site plan. The conditions that have been requested on this project we're completely in agreement with. There's some details in terms of color and that kind of thing that is still undergoing the design work. But this was our first site plan submittal. It was in July of 2022. It's what I would call a conceptual site plan. It really just kind of characterized what the general feeling was. I think of note on this was our entry was on Metropole, and the bar, if you will, was centrally located. Following that, we received some input that the entry was should be bigger and potentially moved to the north, which we did. On our subsequent site plan, we moved the entry up Metropole, so it would be actually a larger entry, and we pushed the bar and the keg storage and the dishwashing unit back up against the bank wall. This was obviously a little bit more refined and defined, but we received some more good input on this one. The primary concern with this one was, potential gathering around the entry, impeding sidewalk passage, and obviously everybody wants to avoid pedestrians having to walk out into the street. It's a busy street, Metropole. So the input on this plan yielded the final site plan, which we're at now. With this one, the pedestrian main entry is off Crescent. That way, if there is any grouping of pedestrians around, it's not impeding car traffic or inadvertently pushing pedestrians out into the street. Any gathering would be actually on Crescent or Front Street, which would be obviously safer for pedestrians and vehicles. We still do have two entries. If I can drag the cursor over here. This is the primary entry here, but we've got an emergency exit here, so this is exit only. We've also got an exit only back here at the end of the sliding gate at the back of the site. So those are two, emergency exit only doors. On Crescent will be in and out. The biggest change here, I think, is probably two things. One being the Flexi Bus. As we've probably stated in previous commission hearings, really we're trying to find some history to integrate into the site, which there's so much history on the island, it was kind of hard to decide what that historic element would be, and we ended up with the Flexi Bus, which is, I think many of you know, was around Catalina touring. Long ago, we're actually restoring one of these buses. That bus is located right here on the site plan, and it's actually on the island now. It was brought over by barge. It's gone through some restoration. It's getting final restoration, and will be, we think, a really interesting addition to this site. We'll have a placard explaining to visitors, what the history of the bus is, when it was built, when the purpose it served on the island, and historic. There's quite a bit of interest in these Flexi buses. We found there's a lot of collectors and aficionados of the Flexi bus. It's a very unique element of Catalina history. A lot of our other ideas about how to implement history were simply displays, and we felt like, hey, this is a 3D, live, real piece of history that people can touch and feel. The other big difference is the beer trailer. It's actually a trailer. It's being custom built, but it was able to incorporate dishwashing, dishwashing, keg storage, and beer dispensing all in one unit. So that's why there's, let's say, less structures, if you will, because three functions were basically able to be integrated into one one trailer, if you will. So it was a fairly long progression to get to this point, but we're happy to have arrived here. The back of the site is still, as was described, it's basically restrooms, dumpsters, and storage. We don't have the final design for this storage yet. Basically, it's a screening element and a storage element to the restrooms. This is a black and white plan. It's a little bit maybe easier to read because everything's separated. There's a couple fire pits in the front. We've discussed this with fire department, and those will be, brought up to make sure there's safety. These are a little bit higher than the typical ones, and that also has a glass shield in front of the fire, so it really protects, let's say, inadvertent burns. This is an aerial view. It just kind of shows spatially where things are. It's predominantly seating, the bus and the trailer, restroom, storage, and picnic benches. There will be a beer pong, cornhole, and activities like that that are movable or removable on the site. This is looking from the other corner, kind of down the alley. Again, just showing the general spatial arrangement. This is a section that's actually drawn across the back of the lot. So like if you were, let's say, 10 feet off the bank wall, this is what is in existence on the site, which is essentially the fire pit seating in near the entrance, the bus, more seating, the trailer, and then a screen wall. There are some back of house activities that go behind that screen wall. Again, that screen wall is about 10 feet off the bank wall. Just a couple renderings with nobody in it to show just the general character and spatial layout. This is at night. Again, very kind of general rendering of the spatial arrangement. The red structure is the trailer that will be the bar, if you will. And then infrastructure, this is probably maybe the least interesting, but we have been working with the city and getting sewer. There will be sewer, gas, water, electricity, and salt water all provided to the site for all the various functions. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know there's been some discussion about minors. I think it's in our best interest and the city's best interest, everybody's interest, to allow everybody into this site. The only reason we're pursuing the Type 42 license for the first year is we knew we could not build a kitchen and get it permitted in this amount of time. We originally intended to open the beer garden for Easter. That's not possible. We're now shooting for Memorial Day weekend. And it is our goal to have, let's say, that 6-month opening period be our only time that minors would not be allowed. We're hoping that the project is successful and that we're able to transition to a Type 41 license next year, which right now we're looking over the possibility of turning the bus actually into a food preparation facility, but that's, let's say, phase 2 or year 2 of the project. So the current application that we're pursuing is a Type 41. It's beer and wine, no food on site, but as I've said previously, we will be providing menus from at least Antonio's, if not other nearby restaurants, to provide food to people at the beer garden that would like it delivered. And I think, yep, that's, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for that, for the applicant?
I have a question. So as far as the bus, is that, it's probably a silly comment. The bus is that gonna be open to like look inside, or?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we've struggled with that a bit. There's accessibility issues that we've kind of, let's say, run up against that we haven't figured out how to solve yet. We've pondered actually having seating inside, but for the first year, it'll be really just decoration and historic only. The second year, there will certainly be some kind of activation, whether it be food prep or be available to go in and sit down. We don't know yet, but for the first year, it will be really decoration only, but it will be a permanent part of the site.
Thank you.
I just have another question. So, you'll be operating April through October during the season. So, after October, will all of that be removed, or is it gonna
No,
stay?
and that's a good question. Thank you. Everything will stay as it is. Obviously, the bus has wheels, the trailer has wheels, the restroom has wheels, but we don't plan on moving anything. And we're anticipating and hoping that there's opportunity for private parties or a wedding or a birthday in the off season where it could be rented and started up. So our approach really is what I would call kind of a plug and play, where everything's there, it's all turned on, you know, after, let's say, October, you know, things might be powered down, but it's easy to power them back up for special events, and we're hoping that will happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Anybody else wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, close the hearing. Any discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan.
With the conditions including about the fire pit and the container that were recommended by staff. and
Per the
others.
staff report.
Okay, perfect. So moved. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, call for a vote.
Okay, Commissioner Putnam,
Yes.
Commissioner Romero,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Yes.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes.
Okay, so Isaac, we have 5 yeses and 1, 2, 3 absent.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, item number 4. Question?
Item number 4 before you is a request for an expansion of existing conditional use permit, coastal development permit, and site plan application for the remodel and expansion of the existing restaurant at the Lobster Trap. This will include the construction of the second floor or second level office space. As we'll go through, the project is exempt from environmental review in accordance with SEQA Section 15301, existing facilities. The project is in the coastal zone and is subject to coastal development permit, which requires a public hearing and planning commission approval. The owner applicant is Caleb Linz. Location of the property is adjacent to the Lobster Trap, so it's 120 and 126 Catalina Avenue. Just a brief background. I'm sure all the members are certainly familiar with this location, but the applicant is proposing an extensive interior remodel and expansion of existing single-story commercial structure at 120 and 126 Catalina Avenue. In addition to the current operational footprint, the project involves construction of a newly designed second-level office space. Minimal changes are proposed to the building facade. However, the interior and rooftop improvements differ substantially from the current configuration and do have a potential to affect neighboring properties, which include a mix of both commercial and residential development within the immediate vicinity. The general plan, land use, and zoning compliance as it relates to annual growth policy. The growth policy provides that new development will only be permitted for the following classes of projects, and almost all require confirmation from Southern California Edison and adequate freshwater, that adequate freshwater is available. Projects involving existing commercial and residential structures which are to be repaired, replaced in kind, or remodeled or enlarged. Staff recommends the Planning Commission to make the findings as required by the 2022 growth policy that the proposed business operation is permittable upon approval from Southern California Edison. The site plan, the proposed remodel and expansion of the existing restaurant, which is conditionally allowed use in a commercial zone, does not qualify as a minor renovation as defined in the municipal code, and thus requires a site plan. The site plan we set forth in there the requirements regarding setback, height, floor area ratio. I want to point out that the height, while it's expanding, it's increasing from its current height. The limit is 28 feet, and it will be in compliance at 24 feet 4 inches. All other conditions are set forth in there and are in compliance. The Avalon Municipal Code Section 9-8.203 requires that the site plan be approved based upon the following 3 factors and principles as follows: that every use, development of land, and application of development standards shall take place in compliance with all applicable provisions of this title. Every use, development of land, and application of development standards shall be considered on the basis of the suitability of the site for the particular use or development intended, and the total development, including the application of prescribed development standards, shall be so arranged as to avoid traffic congestion, ensure protection of public health, safety, and general welfare, prevent adverse effects on neighboring property, and shall be generally in accord with all elements of the general plan. And finally, every use development of land application development standards shall be considered on the basis of suitable functional development design, but is not intended that such approval be interpreted to require a particular style or type of architecture. So first, we have the conditional use permit. As indicated, there is current conditional use permit for the existing restaurant. It's being expanded. The same review process does need to be followed by Planning Commission as set forth on page 3 of the staff report. And that's first of all, the proposed conditional use shall conform and carry out the certified LUP of the area. The nature, condition, and development of the adjacent uses, building, and structures shall be considered, and no proposed conditional use shall be permitted where such use will be adversely affected or materially detrimental to the adjacent uses, buildings, and structures. We would submit that the proposed use is an expansion of existing use, so it would not be materially detrimental with adjacent uses in the sense that it's existed for a number of years. Item 3, the site for a proposed conditional use shall be adequate in size, shape to accommodate the yards, walls, fences, parking, loading facilities, landscaping, or other development features prescribed in this chapter as required as a condition in order to integrate said use with the uses. Again, the proposed use is not expanding the existing footprint of the structures that are there, so we feel that it would be in compliance and would not negatively impact or prohibit anything on Crescent Avenue. Item 4, the site on which the conditional use is located is served by a street that is adequate in width and improved as necessary to carry the necessary traffic such use would generate. Again, existing expansion, we believe, Catalina Avenue and 3rd Street are adequate to handle this requested expansion. And finally, we find that the proposed conditional use shall be consistent with and carry out the purpose and intent of the underlying zone in the sense that it's an existing restaurant adjacent to neighboring restaurants and like uses, we feel that it is compliant. CEQA, the project is categorically exempt under section 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines as an existing facility. In addition, that the addition to the existing structure provides addition will not result in an increase of more than 50% of the floor area of the structure before the addition, or 2,500 square feet, whichever is less. The coastal development, the project is located in the coastal zone within 300 feet of the appealable seaward boundary of the coastal commission jurisdiction. We believe the CDP is in accordance with the Avalon Municipal Code, section 9-8.102B2, as an improvement to an existing structure other than a single-family dwelling, depending on the following conditions. 1, the use is consistent with the goals and objectives of the public public access, and recreational policies of the California Act. The use is in conformance with the certified local coastal program for the city of Avalon. The use has received all necessary local approvals issued by the Planning Commission, including growth ordinance pre-approval. The use has been cleared with respect to the environmental regulations of CEQA. And finally, for all development seaward of the nearest public highway to the shoreline, the proposed development conforms to the public access and recreation policies of Chapter 3 of the Coastal Act. Therefore, the recommendations of staff are that the standard recommendations, in addition to the following: that the second floor office space shall not be converted to residential use or overnight accommodations. Number 2, no rooftop deck permitted off the second floor office space. Number 3, the applicant provides verification to the planning department that he is in compliance with the city's inclusionary housing requirements. Item 4, the applicant shall erect a story pole depicting the height of the second floor office space in order to confirm that such vertical expansion will not negatively impact the sight lines of neighboring properties. And then finally, regarding the site plan, should the commission determine that the site plan satisfies the criteria set forth in Avalon Municipal Code, then we would request that the site plan also be approved, subject to meeting the conditions set forth in the CUP and the attached resolution. Any questions?
I have one question. I understand why there's the list of conditions, but my concern is in reference to decking on the second floor. I would like to allow them to have enough decking to provide egress out of that second story, because there's only one means of exit up that stairwell. So I wouldn't have a problem with enough decking to be able to make that egress off the second story.
But would you be okay having that egress, but limiting it to that it cannot be, it's not to be used from other than from emergency egress?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Because I don't know how we plan, there's not an actual drawing of the second story on how Caleb plans on putting, doors or windows or whatever, but I know that exiting across the roof has got a bunch of machinery and equipment. It may be best that he adds some decking there to do that.
Understood.
And that was the only question I had.
Any other before we open the hearing? Seeing none. Open the public hearing for the CUP and site plan. Anybody want to speak on this?
Come on up, Caleb.
You don't have to, but you can if you want to.
Caleb Lenz, 128 Catalina Street. I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions?
Are you planning on putting a door out of the office upstairs, or?
Yes, I would like to have access. I was intending to make the roof usable, being it's a flat roof, but not a customer area or, whether.
Perfect.
No.
So that'll give you, the door will give you egress off the roof if you need to.
Correct. It could be another exit that you can get
Awesome.
away out of the building if needed.
Can't wait for you to finish it.
Working as fast as I can.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing. Any discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit, coastal development permit, and the site plan with the modification of allowing enough egress off the second story.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Please, Donna.
Commissioner Putnam,
Yes.
Commissioner Romero,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Yes.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Yes?
Commissioner Kennedy.
Build it.
All right, there we go. Isaac, we've got 5 yeses and 3 absent.
Okay.
Thank you,
Motion
Donna.
carried. Thank you. Okay, so next thing, is there any planning department, city attorney, or commissioner reports?
I just want to bring to the Planning Commission's attention, we are trying to, for the March meeting, the deadline for submittals from the March meeting was today. I think we have 1 TRL.
Correct.
Okay. So we were kind of waiting to see if how big your agenda was, and then we'd fill it up with other things. One of the things we'd like to suggest is whether or not Planning Commission would want to have a joint meeting with council for that March meeting and discuss short-term rentals. And we would take care of the 1 TRL at that meeting, and that way Planning Commission and council can have the joint meeting to discuss what direction we want to go forward with short-term rentals, rather than both bodies being kind of talking at different times, and council wanted to extend that to see if you wanted to do that on Tuesday, March 21st. And what we would do is just have the joint meeting and then address the 1 issue that would be pending before you. If that's something that makes sense in that
Sure,
way.
it makes sense if they want to do it. Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely want it. Sounds like a good way
Yeah,
to
I mean, it's something
start.
that council is wanting to circle back and revisit. I know it's something the planning commission, we made reference back in, I believe, December, coming out of the Hamilton Cove discussion, that we wanted to circle back and visit. I've had private meetings with some of the Hamilton Cove folks regarding their concerns. I think it's time for us to kind of see where we're at with this and what changes we want to make, and hopefully between now and then, we plan on getting some what some other communities are doing, how they're addressing it. You know, we'll get you a saturation map, because one of the things we've been working on, there's two issues really when we're talking about a saturation map. One, the residential units that have the ability to rent and the ones that actually rent. Those are two different things. And so what we wanted is to be able to depict a map of the city with both of those on there, so you can see the active rentals and ones that have either the license or the CUP that could do it. And kind of follow up with that. So I think hopefully coming out of that, between your thoughts and council's thoughts, staff will have a better direction on where we want to go.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we can pull that off with council, right now council's agenda is allowing that, yours certainly does, since we know it's locked in at this point.
Okay.
We'll get a confirmation out to you, but just kind of keep that thought in mind that we'll meet on the 21st of March instead of the Wednesday, the 22nd. We'll meet on council night.
So Tuesday.
So
Tuesday, the 21st.
I better, okay.
We'll remind you.
Well,
Thank you.
we had some items that we held over till the 22nd of March, some conditional use purpose. So how does that affect those?
Well, I think that those items were whether or not those folks that we were going to revoke came in compliance with the city, and the thought would be that, assuming that they have, we will be withdrawing those from revocation.
Okay, so we
So-
could do that we could do that before the 22nd.
Or we could do it, yeah, we could do it on the 20th. I'll check with Isaac to make sure, but if we're revoking those as a city, if we're saying they're no longer out of compliance and we're no longer requesting revocation, we would be removing those.
Okay, super.
Thanks for bringing that up. That is a good point. That's all I have.
Can't believe I remembered.
I just want to give another reminder. I talked to some of you earlier. Gabby wants to remind you that it is time for your annual statement of economic interest, Form 700. They're due by April 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's it. I think that's it. We're done. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, Tony.
Thank you.